Welcome to the 38th edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. Kyle Klingman here, Scott D. Beck in New York City. The mailbag is overflowing, Scott Beck. And we'll start with USA Wrestling's Junior Nationals and 16U Championships, aka Fargo. Sounds like for the women's finals, it was a USA Wrestling decision to move 16U to a 135-pound start, which would allow Taina Fernandez the opportunity to get a 16U championship and a junior championship. So it wasn't her thought. It wasn't anything to do with her. We got that information after the fact when we did the show. So it looks like it was USA Wrestling saying we're going to start at 135 and move all the way through.
Yeah, just to be clear on it, I mean, it was called to my attention. Someone thought I was making it as a knock, like on Fernandez, that she had requested them to move it, and I called it the Fernandez rule. That was not the spirit of what I said. Number one, I didn't even know. I missed her first match in Cadet, the first match she had, and I had to watch it after when they put that first because I was traveling. I got in, so I actually was watching it and said to you, when is she gonna, the way the timing was working, I'm saying, oh, is she gonna be running from one mat to the next? So I didn't even know that they had moved it. And I wasn't at all implying when I did find out that the match was moving. You told me, and in fact, it happened already, the first match, that her camp or, Taina herself had requested that. That was not the spirit of it. Number one, I didn't know. Number two, I didn't imply that they requested or asked for special privileges or something. And I did not in any way mean to detract from the incredible performance of Fernandez. And I just want to make that clear. You and I mean, we went the first 12 shows or 15 where we could not mention her name. And we almost consciously have to talk less about her on the air because we're always talking about her off the air and how good she is. So that was not at all meant on a knock of Fernandez that they were asking for special things. That said, my point about I don't like the fact that we even had to have that discussion. The ladies should be able to wrestle both. I stand by that. And we shouldn't have to worry what happens if more people wanted to do both, or if, in fact, they move the order for Fernandez on their own will. The idea that the women aren't wrestling both, or some of the better younger ones, are worried about it, and Fernandez is good enough that she did it, and she blitzed the field and wrestled a total of probably 2 or 3 matches if you look at the cumulative times. But that shouldn't have to happen. We shouldn't have to guess what would happen if 8 ladies tried to do it or were potentially good enough to make the finals, which would be pretty tough for 8 to make double finals. But the point is, I don't understand. And you and I are going to have a talk. We're going to reach out to USA Wrestling. Maybe it's Bickley. I don't know who the right person. We'll talk to somebody. I want to hear what they have to say about it, why it's been changed. I don't think it's fair on a gender equality thing. The boys have a chance to double up in freestyle and Greco. The ladies used to in cadets and juniors. I would like them to be able to. And the last thing they should have to worry about is running from mat to mat if they decide to try to do it like Taina did. And again, just to be clear, it was not meant to be a knock on her. You and I could not be bigger fans of her.
I'm glad that we're going to follow up. I think the one thing that I like about just getting that knowledge is it made us better and it allowed us to understand the process better. And it's making us go and find out more information from USA Wrestling so we understand why, and we are going to get to the bottom of this. Not the bottom of this, but we're going to ask questions. Not like we're in private investigation.
No, but we just want to see the thought process.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And everything is all about opportunity. Equality of opportunity is Title IX, right? And it pisses me off as a father to daughters that the ladies don't have an equal opportunity. I guess they do, but they'd have to jump through hoops the way Taina did. The tournament should be separate. I want the ladies to have an equal opportunity, the boys to be double Fargo champs with reasonable conditions. Because for her to do it the way she did 14, those are borderline unreasonable conditions, and only somebody that good pretty much can do it,
I'm excited about that. So I'm excited that we get to reach out to, we've said Cody Bickley. If he says, here's the better person, we will go to that person. But I think that's going to be an important conversation for us to guide us on what's going to happen for Fargo. Maybe that some point they split off women's and men's is so big that you have to go to a different tournament like they do with Body Bar or the Women's Nationals. That could happen at some point. So
then do it.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. So it's getting probably to the point where there's a tipping point where it's too big at this point.
Good problem.
Good problem. Now, I didn't know that we would get the feedback that we got about Pin. So we brought that up and you had commentary. And so there was a barrage of feedback of people saying, did you know this scenario and this happened here? And did you know that in New York, certain things are different than in other states? And that if you wrestle a boy, that may count against you. So you brought up Pin last time. You had some clarity. What do you make of all that?
Number one, thank you for the feedback. I love it. As you said, it's just going to make us better, try to understand it. I think some of the commentary was like, along the lines of, well, this person, because of this quirk in the rule, became seated higher than somebody. And I just want to repeat the overriding theme that we learned from the first interview is it is not meant to be seating. It is meant to be a separation. So let's just keep that in mind as we dig, which I'll get to something in a second. And also, that is not that much different. In the old system, there were categories of ranking. So it was never meant to be. It was like, okay, if you were a national, a cadet or junior world medalist or junior, you're in category 1. Then category 2 is like a national finalist, I believe, or better in certain terms. Then category 3 was a top 3 to 6 or 2 to, whatever it was. So within those categories, they didn't look at head-to-heads. It was random. So it was a separation by category. So it was never meant to be, even in the old way, if somebody could have just beaten somebody 2 weeks ago and been, quote, seated below them, but they would argue it was not a seating, it was a separation. So let's just understand pins are separation. But in the example that somebody gave us, which was very interesting because they made it very clear that they're trying to make, number one, that there is separation in pin by style. So freestyle, folk style, or Greco for the boys. They look at each style has a pin. Then they have not yet separated age levels, but they're going to put some type of factor, some coefficient, which will neutralize for great results when you're younger. But then why isn't there a gender coefficient or category? I don't like the idea that this isn't affecting senior women or probably good juniors, but this is affecting cadets and younger. That if they don't have enough opportunities to wrestle boys in certain situations, to wrestle young ladies their age, they'll wrestle boys. They should not be penalized for wrestling boys in a women's national tournament. I don't like that. And especially the really, really top ones at younger ages, to get better, they need to wrestle boys because they just annihilate all the, until they get to national tournaments, they're annihilating the boys. So I don't like that because you could have a situation, which we saw in one of the examples given, where somebody was not even, it wasn't like separating them from one other person. They dropped below a bunch of people because of losses to boys. So I don't like that. We need to have a gender thing. So Dave Matthews, if you're listening, please take that into mind. I know you want to make this better, or maybe you and I will call Dave Matthews at some point, who's responsible for this. But I do believe that will be interesting and they'll respond positively. But it was a good quirk. So it's really good that the only way this can get better, I appreciate that USA Wrestling's doing this. They're trying to make it good. And the only way it can get better is with feedback and analysis. And it's great that we're getting that.
Appreciate that feedback on Pin. And then on the college side, someone told us take a look at the NCAA rulebook for the upcoming season. And there's a litany of things we could go through. I'll just give you my highlight. One of the things that baffled me in looking at that was on a flagrant misconduct, they said that I think it was a team point deducted and then you'll get 16 points. Well, with freestyle, as you know, the max you can get is 5. So it looks like they're applying folk style rules to a freestyle rule set at the NCAA. So it looked kind of like a hybrid of what the men's folk style college does and applying some of that to the women's freestyle for the upcoming NCAA. And just in the word crimes, one of the things they had was at the beginning, it said forward, FORWARD, and it should have been forward, FOREWARD. WORD. So just a couple things, but there were about 50 things listed there that you could blow holes through. I don't know what you thought looking at it, but those were the couple things that struck me.
I actually looked at the comments and a list of the things, and then I looked at the rule book, and they were all correct as items that should be looked at. And I think broadly speaking, it's like we finally get the sport, sanctioned at the NCAA wrestling. You know me, I'm obsessed with rules so that there's no gray areas on things. Or if you don't have rules and you want gray areas, then don't even pretend to make a rule. But to me, I think thematically, it was just a lack of detail in many cases where it just, one, they deferred to the rule book. If something's not mentioned, well, go to the men's rule book, but the men's wrestle folk style, the women wrestle freestyle. So I think broadly speaking, somebody needs to carefully take another look at this, and really be attention to detail. Looked like it was brushed through. I don't know if there was a committee, if it was meant as a draft, but I think what they should do is send the rule book out to all the coaches, or a committee, and say, everybody read this and give me your 10 points that we need to look at. I mean, we could do it if they asked us to, but on the show, I'm not meant to go into details, but the analysis somebody sent was pretty spot on. And it just needs to be, if we're going to be serious and treat this as a serious Division I sport, I think as a starting point, the rule book needs to be serious and meticulous.
Yeah, and you're right. Maybe it was a draft that we had seen on the online, and I don't know if they have intentions
I don't know.
fixing that. Fortunately, we're months in advance of the season that can be fixed and people can look at it. But if there are people like you, coaches like you, and I know there are coaches like you that are obsessed with the rule book, what if there is a flagrant misconduct and then they just decide to give 5 and they say, no, the rule book says 6, and then they go to the letter of the law and say, yeah, I guess it has to be 6. It really can't be because there's only 5 points for a fall in freestyle wrestling. So that wouldn't make sense. And as you know, if you follow folk style wrestling, 6 is the max you can get for an injury default, a fall, or any of the like, where a forfeit. So a few things need to be tweaked there, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if, I can't imagine that there's not going to be pushback, other people looking at this, but thanks for the feedback on that.
How about the feel good part of the mailbag? And that is Lucha in the Bronx, New York, where you are from. Josh Lee doing some incredible things. They were on the Today Show talking about the value of wrestling. And that's the cool part, is because it almost feels like this type of story is just so high above what happens on the mat that it's about how you manufacture a sport and how it can change your life. And that's what Lucha in the Bronx has done.
Yeah, Josh Lee, I had met him years ago and Beat the Streets, and he reached out, just wanted me to see. He didn't even know we do this podcast, so it wasn't even like an attempt for attention, but he wanted to just share this with me, a clip, where they were on the Today Show, Dwayne Wade was on it, and, he was on, and then the girls surprised him in the theater, in the studio, and, it's a great story. It's the only girls fully freestyle wrestling club in New York City. And these are girls that winning to them is having somewhere to go. One of the girls was homeless, getting to college, having the camaraderie, becoming better people. It's all about learning skills to, academically put these girls in position to go to college. And he's done an amazing job. Believe it or not, I was literally pretty much in tears. Watching the clip. And I think, you're going to interview him, at some point we'll go into a little more depth, or you'll do a piece on him, whether it's a video or a story, but it was just really touching. And you see that people are giving back. And the girls that, came on the show, one of the girls, I think it was one of Michaela's first matches years ago. I didn't even remember the match. It was like some 1 point slop fest, I think. But the idea that, and one of the girls literally is just homeless and now is in college. So it's just really heartwarming. Thanks, Josh, for reaching out. And, we'll do a follow-up on that. They've raised a lot of money from that clip. If anybody wants to look into that club, Lucha in New York City, I think you want to talk about if anybody wants to donate to something that's really helping people. This is obviously I'm a massive supporter of Beat the Streets. this is, just another great cause, helping city kids that, are fighting, a deck against them in many cases.
And that's the unique part. We contrast that with PIN and all of the rules and the college rule book. And when you flip it to something like this is what matters. It really, if you get 6 points or 5 points, or where you are in head hands defense, or if your headlock isn't the best, really doesn't matter. It's how you build relationships and how wrestling can be a conduit to a better, more fulfilling life. And I think that's what this is all about.
Yeah, we spent such a disproportionate amount of time talking about, the world champs, the Olympians, the world. I mean, because that's what we do. That's, what the videos are. But in the grand scheme, most of the people that wrestling touches and helps are not things or issues we're talking about on a daily basis. So it's important, we don't lose sight of that.
Excited to follow up on that. Couple other follow-ups from Fargo. Some golden tickets for Who's Number One were handed out. I believe it was for Jacqueline Bazakis, Emma Bacon, Violet Lazier, and Taina Fernandez will be at Who's Number One. Well deserved. And then just a couple notes. Amie Hartman at 270 pounds in the junior division had an interesting finals match. She was down 3-1, and she got a takedown, I think, about 30 seconds left, got injured and had to hold on. She won 3-3 in criteria. And then on the 16U side, there were just some exciting matches that culminated at 235 pounds. Tevia Rarick of Utah got a fall in the final. She blitzed her way through at 190. 207, Racheal Adolphie of Indiana got a fall in the finals. But 235 pounds from Iowa, Aniyah Smith, she was down 8-0 in the semifinals, came back and got a second period fall. And then get this, in the final, she was down 9-0 with 30 seconds to go, hits 2 fours, down 9-8, and then secures a fall with 0 seconds. And the only reason I know it's 0 is because it says 4 minutes on the score bout. It was an incredible ending.
That's insanity. I saw the semifinal match. I didn't see the final match. So I'm going to have to go back and watch it. Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, good job for her. The beauty of freestyle, never give up. But normally somebody's down 9-0. You think the only way they're going to win is a fall, which you did get, but you got 8 points, along the way, which is pretty crazy. Those are good stories, and those were good matches.
Yeah, and the other amazing thing, I think if you watch that one with Aniyah Smith, there was one even where it was a slip maybe, and so it could have been the tech, and then she gets up and is able to hit 4-4, and then gets the fall literally with 0 seconds left.
Yeah, going, it's very interesting, because we'll segue to that at some point when we talk about Rigachi from Moldova against Bullen, who went for the tech on a gut and then got stepped over and pinned. It's always very close. Like I've seen so many times in my life where either somebody aggressively goes for the tech and gives up points or gets pinned going for the tech, or somebody doesn't go for it and somebody picks their way back into a match you thought was over. So it's very interesting, like tactically, what you're supposed to do. And then to not get the tech on a questionable slip, that really is a heartbreaker,
And that's why in the corner, these coaches, they're so avid about getting the points they deserve. Because one situation, give or take, and as a fan, sometimes we're like, you're going to lose anyway, we don't care. And then it's like, whoa, now I know why.
You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody gives you the script, for the rest of the match ahead of time. If they did, then you wouldn't worry about it. But you got to fight for your points, especially if you have somebody that is a good athlete. They just gave up a big move or got blitzed a little early. And many times somebody gets a composure, and especially in freestyle, picks their way. Well, now with folk start with these rules, you can score a lot of points too. But, picks their way back. And a good coach, I respect that. There's a time somebody, oh, come on, what are you talking about? The person's getting killed. But a really good coach is fighting for the athlete at all times. You also don't want to tactically give the tech by throwing a brick and then losing. You should never tech your person out of the match. By the way, if it's 9, 8 on a takedown or 9, don't give the last point to the tech on a challenge. But sometimes you need to regroup also. So there's a lot of tactics involved with the bricks.
Yeah, and I love that.
Random aside, yeah.
Yeah, I love that the brick adds tactics to the match, and that you have to be smart as a coach, and it's different for different matches how you
And
use the brick.
with a brick, it's like you literally have like if you actually follow the rules as opposed to the situation we talked about last time, you have like 5 seconds, right? And it's if it's early in the match, you're thinking, should I throw it? Should I not? And then you want to look over at the other coach sometimes or look at the athlete. I mean, there's anxiety. Like it's an art. Some coaches, like you pointed out to me when we were talking about Bruce, from Army, he's very good with his selection of bricks. There is an art to quickly because you really have to assess everything in 5 seconds. What actually happened in that situation? So was it a bad call or not? Then what am I risking versus what am I potentially gaining? What am I risking by losing the brick? What am I risking situationally? Where are we in the match? What am I risking by losing my brick not to get the brick back? So there's a staggering amount of microscopic thought processes that have to be gone through. So it really is an art, and you really have to have a pretty good understanding of the sport.
Scott, there's a staggering amount we want to say about the Hungarian Open. It has a different name. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. So for our
Nor can
purposes,
I.
we're going to call it the Hungarian Open. First, if we truly value wrestling, which we do, women's wrestling, we have to follow international ranking tournaments because they're that important. So if people are going to say, I want to be a world and Olympic champion, I think it's our responsibility, almost our obligation to follow the highest level that we have. And we had most of our number ones and twos at this tournament. And it starts and stops with one name, Helen Maroulis, the GOAT of the United States. I think she looked better than she has since she went unscored upon at the 2017 World Championships. She didn't get scored on at this tournament at 57 kilograms. She got gold. Looked fantastic, looked solid position, hitting her shots. It was quintessential Helen Maroulis. And I think this is a lesson for me because at times you think, you battled the concussions, you're getting older. Why would you want to even start another cycle? Why are you doing this? She proved why she's doing this because she's looked as good as she has since 2017.
She looks just phenomenal. I mean, if you recall, I said to you before you had watched one of the matches or two of them, and I agreed with you. I was thinking when you said to me that she looked the best she has since 17. It's like art. It's like a master class in positioning in the sport of wrestling. Which is the way she beat Kurchina in the quarters from UWW Belarus, who's an Olympic silver medalist. She's very good. Helen just dismantled her in the finals. She shut down India. I mean, she's just so positionally good. And just she did her back trip thing to a fall where everybody knows it's coming, but that's just one of her arsenal. But it all starts with her stance, her movement, her hand position, her hand fighting. She's just got such a high level understanding. And when she's zoned in, yeah, I mean, until somebody can beat her, why wouldn't you do this? I mean, and she just looked unbelievable. And she's just zoning in right now. And, obviously, there's very good wrestlers in the world. 57 is a very difficult weight class. Takuhara from Japan, who's the entry at 57, the U23 world champ. In my opinion, just my assessment, Takuhara beat Sainaja, who's very, very good, world silver medalist, is very accoladed, very good from Japan, who Helen has beaten to make the team. So obviously she's good, but Takuhara wrestles a non-Japanese style. She tries to go up her body. She's got heavy snaps. In my opinion, Helen's just a nightmare for Takuhara. And obviously Mongolia's got good people. Helen's beaten them. China has three good wrestlers. Whether I don't know if they send Hong, if they send they have Zhang, Hong. I don't know who's good at 57. They're going to be tough. But this Helen Maroulis is world championship material. I mean, the way she wrestled.
I think if they held the world championships over that weekend, she would have been the best. I think she was the best in the world at that
There
point.
was nobody beating that Helen.
Yeah, that Helen. Yeah, we hope we get that at the world championships, but that Helen is gold.
And just to give you perspective, I mean, she pinned Kurchina. She teched, Martinez. Kurchina teched Martinez. Martinez is very good. Martinez is beaten world medalist. She's very good and she's very tough. And, Helen just dismantled Kurchina. She just went through this bracket. And the only one I was a little surprised, India came through to the finals. I don't know what happened in the preliminary round where Hungary beat Jomalagu from Turkey, who's very good and young. It was like a default kind of situation. I don't know if she didn't make weight. She was injured. It said, the injury default. So I don't know. Jomalagu would have been good on the other side. I would like to see Helen just dismantle her in the finals, but Helen's top side of the bracket was tough. I mean, you had Helen, you had Kurchina, you had Martinez, Dalek from Hungary. I mean, who beat Kurdashev from Russia, who's very good. So it was not like this joke weight class, but she just looked amazing.
68 kilos. We have two names we need to mention. Gold medal by Kennedy Blades, but bronze medal by Brooklyn Hayes. And she probably had, behind Helen, relative to everything else, had the second best tournament for the United States because she beat a world champion and a Olympic bronze medalist in the opening round 6-5. Looked tough in that. And just a point on that, you saw Sarah Hildebrandt front and center. And you have to give Sarah credit and Terry Steiner in this situation because Sarah was the one in the coaching position in the corner. Terry was behind if you watch the footage. But you could tell specifically in that match with Brooklyn Hayes, Sarah works with her. She's at the OTC with Brooklyn Hayes. You could tell her messaging and what she said. And for whatever reason, you can hear Sarah in a different way. She's yelling in a way that you can hear that on the camera. And because of that relationship and because of that coaching mentorship, what Sarah was saying was reaching Brooklyn Hayes and she was applying it. And there was even one moment where she just told her to calm down. She was down and said, "It's okay." And then she took the advice and went forward and won 6-5 over the 2023 world champion. So I think there's a lot at play here for Brooklyn Hayes. Also in the bronze medal match, a unique situation where she kind of slipped on a takedown attempt and then she went by and then she was able to dive on top of her and get the takedown. So gritty tournament. Love Brooklyn Hayes. I love the energy she brings. If we could all have that enthusiasm for wrestling and life, we would be better people.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's not take anything away from Kennedy Blades, who dominated this blitz through the tournament. Very dominant tech in the final against Jabados from Hungary, who's good. Yeah, I mean, Hayes is good young, and that's a good example where Terry Steiner's got the ego enough to step back, let Sarah be in front. She's the voice, and I'm sure behind the scenes he's mentoring her. I've been told, in practices at camp, she's running it a lot now. Terry's letting her, get the experience doing it. Obviously, the girls really can also connect to her because she's done this. She's doing it. She's there. She just finished it. So obviously she's a tremendous asset, and you can see what's happening as it's happening, that she's, being just mentored and groomed. Kudos to Terry, kudos to Sarah. In terms of Brooklyn Hayes, yeah, I mean, Terry, I think the match is actually 4-3. Where she took out Sassoon from Turkey, who was, world champion. But, Hayes is very good clay that's being molded right now. And she's very young. She's green. She can be sloppy, but she's strong and she's a gamer and she likes to fight and she's a good person. So it's fun. Very strong weight class. We kind of ham and egged it with Kennedy blitzing through, Hayes taking the bronze. And looking very strong. So it was fun to see that on both sides in that weight class.
On Kennedy Blades, I don't think there's any reason right now to think that she won't be the world champion because you're missing a meet who won the Olympics because she moved up to 72 and is not competing this year. And then you have the returning world champion who just got beat by Hayes. So why wouldn't we think that Kennedy Blades would be the gold medal favorite at this point? The one thing you see, though, is because of her style and hitting a lot of throws, you can get injured yourself when you're making those throws. And you saw that a couple times where you hit a big move and you might hurt your shoulder. I think that was something that you have to look out for. But from my mind, I think Kennedy Blades blitzed to this tournament. I think she's a gold medal favorite right now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she's an Olympic champion. I mean, Olympic silver medalist, went down 2 weights. I mean, Japan will be tough at the weight. I think it's Ishii. I think it's 68, right? Who's very good as a world champion. I think Kenny's weight to win. I'd expect her to perform very well. And, If anything, I think she looks very good at 68, and she's only improving and tightening up some things. So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to put the pressure on somebody, but I think her expectations and the expectations of Team USA is, for sure the medal/gold medal. You know,
And she just has a style that's going to be tough to defend
you
against because
can't practice against her because she Kenny Blades don't exist. So it's
yeah.
hard to bring in a Kenny Blades to get the feel.
Scott, moving back down to the lowest weight class, 50 kilograms, Audrey Jimenez lost to India 3-0. And I think there's a lot to be positive about here. Even though she didn't get the chance to come back to repechage, the Indian lost in the second round. But when you break it down and you watch that match, Jimenez was the one taking all of the shots. She still had a gas tank, still shooting at the end. She gave up a takedown on a boot scoot / arm drag, and then she was able to defend that in the second period. You just saw a situation where the one thing that Audrey Jimenez is going to have to deal with is strength and finishing those shots. She was in on 6, 7, 8 shots throughout the course of the match. I think there's some things to take away here, and one is just finishing shots, but to feel what it's going to be like to wrestle some of the stronger opponents, especially if she matches up against Mongolia at the World Championships. I think you can go back to the drawing board, and I think there's a lot of things she can take away from a 3-0 loss that are positive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just, experience wrestling a lot of these seniors, these women, experienced athletes. India's also very awkward. They're kind of long. They're very strong. She was in a lot. She'll figure out. And I don't even think many of the reasons the shots weren't finished were necessary. Obviously there's probably some technical things that could be improved, but Audrey Jimenez is very technical. Um, I think it's just, it could be a little bit of a size issue, a little bit of experience issue, but she'll work through that. This is good experience for her. And, she was the one attacking, stalking, moving forward, and I just think the biggest thing with her is everybody's just got to chill out. You're coming off Sarah Hildebrand, who's a multiple world medalist, Olympic champion. Um, just give her some time. And, whether it's this year and she comes through medals, Japan is 3 deep. They're sending Yoshimoto, but they have obviously Sasaki, Olympic and multiple world champ, Ito. Mongolia is very solid. China's got Fang, among others. So it's a very deep weight class with, experienced athletes, but she'll be right there over time. Maybe this year. Demirhan from Turkey is very solid, who won the weight class. It's just going to take some adjustments from getting used to the next level, but that's why you go to these tournaments, and we'll segue when we go in and we talk about like Rodriguez. But this is why you're at these tournaments, to get the experience, to get these feels. And it's important to do that. Erin Golson, she wrestles domestically and finally has a certain feel, but these different athletes have different body types, different feels. She'll make adjustments. India is hard to replicate. The long arms, kind of boxy, kind of strong body types, very physical. It's sloppy physical though. Not clean physical. So this is all good. She actually looked good in losing, and she'll be fine.
Moving up a couple weight classes to who you mentioned, 55 kilograms, Cristel Rodriguez got a bronze medal, lost twice, but because of the round robin format and wrestling a lot of different people, she was able to get a true bronze in this situation instead of the multiple that they give out. A lot of takeaways here for Cristel Rodriguez. We'll start with the Carla Godinez-Gonzalez match. Lost 4-1, and of course, Godinez wrestled at Simon Fraser from Canada. Has that fifth place to medal caliber right
She's a
now.
world bronze medalist.
World bronze medalist, and is consistently right there, consistent results. And so to show that you can go even with Godinez, I think was a step for her. You see Godinez, she's just so tough from that short offense, underhook, just pushes forward all the time. So really a contrast in how each of those wrestle. Got a little chippy at the end there, and I think I like it from both because Godinez-Gonzalez was trying to get a go behind, just going to the whistle. We saw the fight in Rodriguez, and she just didn't like it. So I like that both fought hard to the end, and it was Godinez in this situation, but that's one of those flip of the coin. I think it could go either way.
Yeah, Godinez said I think a double that got her the points that kind of gave her control of the match from space. I thought Rodriguez first of all, I love the chippiness at the end of the match. I love that. She kind of pushed her. She felt like the whistle went, and she's had to like one up her and get to go behind. But I thought Rodriguez's movement and hand fighting was very good and very advanced actually. And I'll segue to the Verbena match, which was cross bracketing from the pool semifinal. Verbina's not a senior world medalist. She's won age group world medals, U23 world medals from Russia. I've seen her over the years a lot. And she there was a style clash, and she dominated Rodriguez. She got her really, twice on, high crotches, where she then was able to transition to a double lift and then kind of really spiked her to a back. And then, in the aftermath, got a lace. That match looked like a mauling, to be honest with you. I think that gap closes very quickly. I think a little bit better head-hands defense to stop the attacks on the high crotch to a left side. I think, she's as I said, a good hand fighter. I think she cleans that up a little bit. Verbena doesn't get those attacks, and then the match is completely different. I think if they wrestle 2 more times, each time the matches get closer. Rodriguez has shown the ability to adjust. I'm not sitting there saying she got tech mauled, kind of, and she can go with Verbena, and Verbena dominated Godinez, but this is a great match for her to have, for Rodriguez to have, to see where she is, to see what she needs to work on. She wrestled, not taking nothing away from Lidecker. You know how high on her we are. She's a high school girl. That's who with very good skills and talent, but she's not a woman, and she's not that physical maturity. Verbena's a beast and very strong and physical, and the more she wrestles people like that, she is a scrapper, and we saw that in the moxie at the end of the match. She will close that gap quickly. I think this is great for her to get this experience, and I think she wrestled well, taking a bronze medal.
This may have been the most important tournament of anyone on Team USA for Rodriguez, because to get that feel, like you talked about, against a strong senior, and to see where you are against strong senior level competition. Of course, Godinez has been around for a while. You're 21 years old at this point, and to get that feel after winning a U20 World Championship last year, to come in and get that senior feel, I think she's just going to continue to improve and grow from this. So I like that she was resilient and got a bronze medal out of this.
Absolutely. She did a great job.
Move back down to 53 kilograms. We just talked about the awkwardness of what the Indians bring. Felicity Taylor got a bronze medal. The thing I liked about this is that when she got on top, she was going and was deliberate for turns through the duration of the tournament. Problem is, when she lost 10-0 against India, she got hit with low shots on every single time she got scored on, so she was never had a chance to get on top. But if you take that match out, I like the product that Felicity Taylor had. Of course, you can prove a lot of things. You're not going to go back, say anything's a perfect tournament. You're going to go back. That's why you go to these ranking events. But there's some things I like that Felicity Taylor did on the road to this ranking series bronze medal.
Yeah, and Anthem, I think she's a senior world medalist, maybe a bronze, I think. But she's a junior world champion, I believe. She's won a bunch of age group world medals, and she's just another one of these awkward, long arm, kind of squarish type body, very physical, and honey badger. At times there's slop, but at times technical cleanness, and she's just a nightmare. I mean, just nightmare to wrestle. And Taylor's got to get, she's got to have better baseline defense, to stop the leg attack. Anthem got in a lot on the legs, and now she knows she needs to work on that. That's clearly a little bit of a weakness. Anthem, as we said, it's hard to replicate this style, but she's very, very good, and she's relentless. I think Taylor scrapped with her, which is good, and it's good for her to get that, the experience of her. But Anthem is tough and tricky, and I think, again, she'll be well served by looking at film and specifically working on a few areas. And again, I think if those areas are tightened up, the match doesn't look that way. And I like the way Taylor scrapped back for a bronze medal as well.
Let's move up a few weight classes. 65 kilograms was the most exciting weight of the tournament, without question. Give us Grace Bullen, Ringasi all day long. We got our second match after match of the year at the European Championship Finals. We get another one in the Hungarian Open Finals, lived up to the billing. We'll start with that. Again, another situation where it looked like Ringasi could have gotten the tech, and then what happens at 16-8, you go for the tech. The famous saying of Lee Miracle, give up position for points. Well, it happened there, and guess who Bullen wrestled for? It was Lee Miracle at Campbellsville. She won a WCWA championship there, so she
Right.
was able to execute on that and get that fall. She was down 16-8 and then got a fall. But before we go into that, there's nobody better in the world right now of getting off their back. If we say wrestling teaches you how to get off your back metaphorically, in a real sense, Grace Bullen knows how to get off her back. She was dead to rights twice, and she was able to get off.
Kilty had Bullen on her back. Gotcha had her on her back. But that match, I've never seen something where they played this match up before the match started. Oh, if this is anything like the European Championship, that was the greatest match ever. It was back and forth. This case is going to be exciting. And if ever anything in the history of the world was set up for disappointment, it was this match. And guess what? It didn't disappoint. There were three phases where, Ringazzi came up, blitz Bullen, and Bullen came up, blitz Ringazzi, spiked her in the back. Then Ringazzi came back, almost texts her, and then Bullen steps over and pins her. So crazy match in a crazy weight class. Kilty had Bullen beat. A weird situation where there were 3 4s, I believe, in the match. So each, had some 4s. Kilty had Bullen dead to rights. Then Bullen at the end of the match, Kilty has her on her back. Time's like expiring. She has her like in a headlock. It looks like there's no way that Bullen's going to be able to get the exposure. Macy's trying to like push off, pop her head out. Somehow with 30 seconds left, Bullen kind of lifts the head, gets it through it. It didn't look like that could happen, and pins her. What are the takeaways? Kilty's right there. Okay, Bullen should have won an Olympic title. Matoki, she made the mistake of going upper body with Matoki in a match that was over and got thrown and pinned by Matoki in Japan in the finals of the Olympics. She and Ringazzi go back and forth. Ringazzi is a world champ. This Macy's right there, but this weight class is it's not as deep as 62, which we'll get into, but 65 is very top heavy with a lot of talent. Between Kilty, who's a world, silver world bronze, Bullen, did she win a senior world title or it's at least a silver, a couple of silvers? But Bullen's very good. Ringazzi's a world champ. But they rest, and then of Mongolia, whoever they send, whether it'll be Suki, who's beaten Kilty, but it's also gone down to 62 and 59 even, and Porzavors, who's a world champion. This weight will be top heavy, and they're high flyers. They're just wild type styles that are hard to, all these matches of 20 points minimum. It's kind of crazy stuff. And I think Kilty's style. Kilty would prefer a more methodical, slower style match. She's very technical. She's very strong. She's very good positionally. And like Bullen, just creates chaos, and Ringazzi's just very crazy athletic and squirmy. So it's going to be very interesting. And, but I think if you're Kilty, I'm sure she is so freaking pissed off. You can't imagine, at losing that match to Bullen, but she came back, got a bronze medal against Turkey, and the takeaway's got to be, I'm as good as anybody here, right? And I can beat these women.
Moving back down to 62 kilograms, Adugo Nwachukwu. She lost to the sister of Carla Godinez, Ana Godinez Gonzalez, 6-5. That was a good match too, and again, credit to Bruce Robinson of WCAP, which is the Army's world-class athlete program. 2 challenges, won both challenges, and really set her up for a possibility at the end. The second challenge was important because if he wouldn't have, it would have been 8-5, ended up being 6-5, and Adugo wasn't able to score. There was a interesting situation that got challenged, got overturned to the right call, but it was 4-2, and so I'm assuming they gave the takedown to Gonzalez, and then they were giving a throw to Adugo in that situation, which was 4-2, and ended up being 6-5 in favor of Gonzalez. But again, lesson learned: 62 kilograms is insanely deep, And Adugo can probably go with anyone in the weight class at any given moment. Can she string 3 to 4 matches together against the toughest weight class in the world? That remains to be seen, but she can beat anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, can anybody in the weight class string four together, right? So, well, and does anybody come in? I mean, look at Khadijah's draw. She barely beats Adugo, and after that great challenge by Bruce, where Adugo got the four, is winning, and then Godinez got a four late, right? Then Godinez has to go beat Dudova, who's a world champion and multiple medalist, and then Godinez loses to Kasabieva, who's a world at least silver medalist, and then Kasabieva loses to Tandalova. So and it's the top was weaker, at the bottom of the stack, but the top one, but anybody can beat anybody. And then 62, you can have Matoki as an Olympic champion in that weight. You'll have somebody good from Mongolia, whoever it is, whether it's Suki or Borgvord, butchering the name, and then you'll have China's good. I mean, and by the way, I think China is Jia Long is 65, I think, back to 65 in China. So these weights are solid. The world is good, and they're deep. Again, the takeaway here is, and this is the same thing with Miracle, right? Miracle has beaten any of them. She's taken 2 single world silvers, but you got to beat all of them to win the gold. So you got to have the tournament in your life to beat. There's 8 to 10 people that are like world medalists, world champions in 62. It's the deepest weight, and there's a lot of parity. Any given day, they all just beat each other. And Adugo, her takeaway, she lost that match late. But if I'm Adugo and I'm Bruce, I'm sitting there, and I'm Sarah or Terry, I'm sitting there. She can beat anybody in the world. There's no doubt. And her style is not easy to train against. And her parterre game's improving. She's getting broader, in her arsenal. She's going to look at film and look at how she gave up that late double, and she can tweak that, tighten that up, but she's right there. And this weight class is an utter insanity.
76 kilograms, Diamond Guilford goes 1-1, won the first match, and then lost in the quarterfinals. Shouldn't have, though. She was ahead late and then got pinned. That's been a theme of what we've talked about throughout the course of the Hungarian Open. She can go with anyone, too. Kylie Walker's the number 1. She's the number 2 right now. She gave Kylie Walker a tough best-of-3 series in Final X. But I think Diamond, I know you don't want to get pinned at the end there. You could have gone on and done some things there. But I think Diamond continues to prove she can go with anyone in the world. Just has to be a little bit more careful in those end-of-match situations.
She has actually, not that she cares what I think, but really impressed me this year. The way she's wrestled Walker tough, in this match, that girl from Kyrgyzstan is very good. And, she just made a mistake at the end of the match. But if you're sitting there and looking at where you are and where you can be, I mean, obviously, she's not the world champion this year, but sometimes if you're an athlete, I could say something with my daughter. She had a very disappointing, trials process. But you got to sit there sometimes and say, okay, I didn't get my goals this year. Obviously, I'm not going to the world championships, but I got to now look at and take an inventory and get better. Look at what I'm doing right. Am I there? Like I'll say, and we'll talk in a second. When we go to 59, the girl that won it, Mikhail's beaten that girl from Hungary, Bogda, right? So you sit and you take inventory and say, can I beat some of these people? Yes. Why am I not doing? What did I do in my match? In this case, Guilford made a mistake at the end of the match. He does so many things well. I think, you can be disappointed, but you have to find the positives. That's a theme in this tournament, we're saying. There are many positives. Some people got the performances they wanted. Others didn't. But there were, in all these situations, there were positives to take away. I mean, I cannot look at an athlete that there were not significant positives in their performances. And I'm going to say the same thing for Guilford. I think she keeps getting better, and I'm not counting her out moving forward.
59 kilograms, you brought it up. Abby Netti got a bronze medal. She lost in the quarterfinals or the qualification to Elena Brugger of Germany, 8-2. Again, what do we say all the time? You got to watch the match. You can't say 8-2. It was just dominant. Gave up a 2-2 at the end, so it was 4-2 before that, and she's trying to get a takedown. So essentially, you're even in that situation. So a couple things you clean up, you might turn that around. So the 8-2 is essentially 4-2, and maybe you get it at the end. So again, positives we can take away with Abby Netti.
Yeah, I mean, her hand fight looked great at the beginning. She gave a kind of a junk takedown on the edge early. She was dominating the hand fight, I thought. She's down 4-0. She got to takedown. She was down 4-2 on top, and she's got great parterre, as anybody knows, and knows the wrestling. So she looked pretty good. Brugger's tough. She's scrappy. Then Brugger beats Sodelnikova, from Russia, who's a U23 bronze, I think, or silver, junior world champ. And then, surprising to me, Bogner from Hungary, I would not have expected, who this shows you. She competes everywhere. I don't think has won anything major. As I said, Racheal's beaten her. Not that that makes her bad or anything, but, Racheal's beating her. I'm not thinking Brugger rips through a tough bracket, beats Netti, beats Sodelnikova, and then loses to Bogner. And I would not have expected that, right? So it just shows you compete, you fight, you scrap. And then Netti goes, and if you look at the score, it was 7-4. It was 6-4. Netti was dominating that match against Sodelnikova, who was very good and kind of a little unorthodox. Sodelnikova hit a couple of big moves at the end to make the match close. She had an inside trip. And then kind of a weird kind of scramble takedown. Almost got to it at the buzzer, didn't get it. But I thought Netti had a lot of good things to take away and absolutely could have beaten Brugger. And she came back and took the bronze as well. She's just a exceptionally physical wrestler, and especially in that first period. I mean, if you're not ready to fight, when I say fight, I don't mean she's sloppy, but she's just very strong and very good at controlling ties. So you need to be able to clear ties. Now, I was giving Brugger a lot of trouble early in the match, and Netti, I thought looked pretty good, and she should hold her head up. These are. Brugger's world medalist caliber. She's right there, competing for a world medal.
Covered a lot there. I'll give my final thought here. I just love this international ranking tournament. I had a blast watching this, following it, going back and watching certain segments over and over and over again. So please follow these ranking tournaments, because if you want to be a senior world and Olympic champion, which a lot of these girls say, this is the end game. This is how you do it. It's the process. It's taking losses, wrestling competition that's going to rattle your cages, finding out where your flaws are, and then improving on those, and then strengthening your strengths. It's all part of this process. So it's not just some road paved with gold where you just win everything. You've got to take losses. You got to rattle your cage. That's my final takeaway. What do you see?
I see a couple of things. Number one, it makes me realize, because I hadn't seen singers, for a little while. We've been watching a lot of the younger athletes. I love seeing women's freestyle wrestling, and it's a treat to watch these tournaments. This one's always interesting because people are fighting for positioning in the last way you get ranking points of the worlds. Again, yes. I mean, this is what it's going to look like, and the product just keeps getting deeper and better and improving. And I think we've transitioning in some of the lighter weights, especially to different athletes that have not competed. I think broadly speaking, Team USA is in good shape. The next generation is tough. We're good. We're getting experience. There are things to work on, but there's a lot of positives. So this is exciting stuff, encouraging, and really looking forward to seeing how this team works and improves and seeing how they compete at the World Championships.